Welcome everyone to today's show. So we've got a double header here on the astrological uh, intel, and I'm excited to bring back Stephanie Shea and Sophie Wan. They're going to represent kind of both sides of what I consider the two choices in your astrology, not including Chinese astrology, which that would have been fun, but I don't really know anyone that does that yet. So if anyone's out there has recommendation, feel free to send it over my way. But I wanted to have this conversation today about Pluto and what's happening in our world because for a couple of reasons. One, I don't know myself, so I wanted to be educated by these lovely ladies and to see also if it changes from Western astrology to Vedic astrology, or if we're all talking about the same thing. Are we all on the same timeline? How do we treat Pluto as an outer planet versus an inner planet? How does that affect you and me? And then also because I feel like this end of the year cycle, for me, most of you who've been listening for a while or watching or on my list, you know that the end of the year kind of gets a little bit slower, but I'm ramping up, letting you know about what's happening next year. It's your chance to decide that I want to do things differently. I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to shed a skin. I want to transform. I want to transmute. I want life to look differently in whatever way. And this is sort of the incubator, this time frame for those decisions, because all those programs start in January. So I wanted to just see how this all fits in, and then with my own plans of transformation and transmutation and all the things. So welcome back, Stephanie and Sophie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. We're excited to dive in.
I'm excited too. So let's just do a short little overview for those that haven't been with me for very long. Anybody who's listening that's new or watching that's new. I've had both Stephanie and Sophie on before. Stephanie and I've done an astrology course together called the Next Level Astrology course. So, they've been here and we've talked about some really fun things. So let's start with Stephanie and just give everybody a little overview of your background and what you do and yeah.
Sure. I'm here to represent Western astrology today, and I worked with Jan Spiller, who's fairly well known in that field, especially for her work with the North Node. And I started with her back in 2012 on her website. When she passed in 2016, she wanted to keep her teachings going. And so we kept the website going, and I'm just about finished with a book that she started before she passed, and it's going to be all about the North Node through the houses. That's not what we're talking about today, but Jan was also obviously very involved in what the outer planets are doing. And so I really enjoy being an astrologer, helping people to understand this and definitely to not fear it.
Great. Thanks, Stephanie. Sophie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sophie Wan. I'm a Vedic astrologer, and most of you guys might know me from the Netflix show Indian Matchmaking, where I was an astrologer. And my specialty is Vedic astrology because I just love the deep understanding of why did we decide to reincarnate back here. So that is my specialty, helping people understand and unlocking your gifts, your karma. And so, yeah, I'm excited to dive in because Western astrology versus Vedic astrology is always kind of a hot topic, but also just in general, how you can use both. Because I actually originally studied Western astrology and then decided to move into Vedic astrology. And I love what you said about the nodes, Stephanie, because that's definitely what Vedic astrology focuses on. So that's great that we're already seeing crossover.
I agree. I was going to mention I had heard that Jan had done some studies in India.
Mhm.
So, yeah, not a surprise. And I have such respect for Vedic astrology as well.
And as most of you, if you've been listening for a while, know, I started in Western, but I've had Sophie on because I wanted to talk about Vedic. And for me, I'm not if I have the tools that explain things, I don't need to find other tools. Now, Vedic offers some things that Western doesn't for me or for some other people, but generally, like things like there's other frameworks that people have asked me about that I haven't had on the show yet, and I might in the future. It just depends. When something can answer a question that I can't, like Enneagram. Anytime anyone talks about Enneagram, I'm like, astrology tells me the same thing the Enneagram does. Why do I need Enneagram? Like, Enneagram's simple and astrology is way deeper and more in depth. So again, if someone can prove to me there's a different reason for me to use that framework, then I'll learn about it and I'll bring it on. But right now, I'm pretty good with the depth of astrology that we have going on. I mean, it's pretty detailed when you get into it, and that's why it's a lot. And that's why I wanted to talk to both of you to represent those who are in the audience who do one versus the other or don't know the difference. And I guess let's just talk about that for a second. Can you each give me your explain what you think the main difference is in terms of the focal point, or what, like for instance, in the I was raised Greek Orthodox, and my mother's family is Catholic, and we always had a different Easter. So I said, why do we have a different Easter? Because the Orthodox Easter falls on a different day because they follow the Jewish calendar. And so the Jewish calendar changes from year to year versus the Western calendar doesn't. That's why it's the same day all the time. And so that was sort of the science, if you will, the non-judgmental, not point of view, but was the fact that we followed the Jewish calendar, and the calendar changes every year, and then everybody else follows a different calendar. So what would be the difference from Western to Vedic? Let's start with Stephanie.
It's almost similar. I mean, the Western system is based on different calculations. We departed from following the literal constellations that you would see through the telescope. So people get confused because Western astrologers saying, hey, the sun's in Aries, and someone's looking in their telescope saying, no, it's not. It's in this different constellation. So that's where it's really different. Western decided to anchor the signs to the equinoxes and the solstices and spread them equally apart. So it's still very much a mathematical system. And they kept the names of the zodiac because people were familiar with that. So that's the main difference I see. That's why things end up in different signs, because we're calculating it differently.
Great. Sophie?
So, I mean, I definitely agree with Stephanie there about the example you used about the different times is kind of what I like to sum up to people. It's like you're just using a different system of how to tell time. And so you do see a big shift in the signs, right? Like, for example, in Vedic astrology, I'm a Gemini, but Western astrology, I'm a Cancer. And that really throws people off. They're like, no, I'm not. There's no way I'm a Gemini. But the biggest difference for me is the actual like school of thought and foundation of interpretation. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? And Vedic astrology is very steeped in the Vedas, which are really all about understanding your karma, your reincarnation pathway. And then, you take, for example, the moon is actually the most important planet in Vedic astrology, not the sun. So even if you go to a Hindu temple, which, right, Vedic astrology, Hinduism, Ayurveda, they all go hand in hand. If you go to a Hindu temple, the priest is going to ask you, what's your sign? He's not referring to your sun sign. He's referring to your moon sign. So that's a huge difference, in my opinion, is really tracking the moon, which is the closest celestial body to us. So that's kind of my quick take on what I think are the biggest differences.
Okay. Well, when it comes to me interpreting people's charts or using it in the work that I do, I mean, I always do someone's chart, but I'm always looking at the moon. Now, it's the moon based in Western, but I'm looking at the moon more than I am looking at the sun for the reason of emotional interpretation. So how someone sees the world, how they react, how they see themselves in the world. And I know in Western, Sophie, you're a Sag moon. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, so am I.
Memory.
And Stephanie, you're Capricorn. Am I correct in that? You're Capricorn Western. So, and I think I'd probably be an Aquarius. Would that be right in Vedic? Which I wouldn't depart so much from my Pisces because I am quite verbose and and unique and a unicorn, and I can see some Aquarius tendencies that I could have. So I'm not like rejecting it, but I do have to say I do love the depth of the Pisces that I have because there's not a whole lot of them. So let's move into why we had this conversation, because that we could probably just talk about that for the entire show in terms of the differences between Western and Vedic astrology. So let's talk about Pluto, right? So I know that these outer planets don't move and shift a lot. That's why our inner planets, to explain to everybody, which is sort of when I look at someone's chart, I'm looking at your inner planets because I think those gives me a well-rounded idea of how you interpret the world and your personality and your habits and patterns that are sort of energetically ingrained from the sign and the element that might represent that, and how developed or underdeveloped that sign may be. But I never look at minus true node and sometimes Chiron. I never look at someone's outer planets sort of when I'm starting to get to know them, because the outer planets are more like their movements, right? They affect all of us because they're outer planets and they don't change very often. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, go ahead, Sophie.
I was about to say, it's funny because Vedic astrology doesn't really incorporate the outer planets at all. It's very traditional, and you focus on the 9 main ones plus the nodes, or I guess the nodes include the 9. But as a reader, I actually do look at those outer planets, and specifically Pluto, because I always say Pluto is your black box of trauma. If you really want to work through your stuff, where's your little black box where you're avoiding? It's like buried so deep inside, right? You took this black box, you buried it like 1,000 feet below what you thought was your rock bottom. And, when I get deeper in with my client work, it's always like, that's what's going to tell me this is what your subconscious is like blocking out and you don't even want to work through, which is very different from the traditional Vedic. But that's why I think it's so interesting we're talking about Pluto, because part of Vedic astrology is like, we're not going to look at that. But the reader in me and the healer in me is like, oh no, we need to look at that. Like, let's go there.
Well, that's probably the benefit of you starting in Western.
Yeah.
And incorporating that, because again, so there's another difference, right? Is that in Vedic, if you're not really looking at outer planets, and Stephanie, I know we talked about that in the course that we did about the outer planets. And if I read correctly, that another Pluto shift into the next sign, which will be Pisces, right? So it shifted in Aquarius recently, but it won't shift again for 225 years.
Actually, for 20 years, the 200, it's closer to 250 year. That's how long it takes Pluto to go all the way around the zodiac. So the next time Pluto will be in Aquarius after it's done is another 250 year, but it's anywhere from like 14 to 20 years in a sign. It's sort of got an erratic orbit. Yeah. And I would add with the outers in a chart, what I like to look for is what are they doing in relation to the main planets, the sun, moon? Where are they placed? I'm really big on houses. So to me, that's what I'm looking for, with outer planets, because they can offer these supporting roles or challenging roles sometimes.
So, Sophie, you called it the black box of trauma.
Yeah.
Stephanie, how would you categorize Pluto's role in our human experience?
I think, yeah, she probably has a more succinct way because I always say it's like the things we don't want to look at. It represents something in us that needs to probably be looked at, something often that has to get let go of. I think of that with Pluto and strength. Pluto represents power. Yeah, so it's definitely not in vain, any of the stuff that Pluto brings up for a person. It's going to bring about a permanent change that's usually quite powerful.
Okay, now you're talking my language, both of you, because I just intuitively felt like, all right, this means something for the work that people want to do to grow themselves, and this is something now to look at freshly in this sign. It's funny that I just looked at my Pluto because that's one of the planets. I mean, outer planets I do not have memorized except my Chiron, and my nodes, like what I am. And in Western astrology, I have a Libra Pluto, which is so funny that I have the two of you here right now. I'm like, oh, Libra, I'm doing the balance thing of having both sides. So when we're looking at that, we've moved into Aquarius. Let's just each give and we can start with you, Sophie, this time. Give me a general meaning of what it means for all of us to have Pluto move into Aquarius. And now, is it still in Aquarius for you in Vedic?
No.
Okay, good. All right, good. What is it in Vedic?
So it's still in Capricorn and it will be here until March 6th, 2039, because it is 6 degrees Capricorn. So that's what I think is really interesting is in traditional Vedic astrology. And I mean, even when I look at the transits from my clients, like I don't really fully look at Pluto because most in Vedic astrology, because it's so ancient, they only accounted for the planets you could see, right? So Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, and then the nodes. That was it. It's called the Navagrahas, the nine major planets. And so that's why it's so interesting when people ask me about, oh, Pluto entering Aquarius. I'm like, oh, well, not in the Vedic system. And it's not getting there until March 6th of 2039. But what I will say is that there's still a lot of interesting activity going on with the whole Aquarius thing, because we have a nodal shift. The karmic nodes end up shifting in the Vedic sign into Aquarius. So this kind of goes in line with this whole Pluto moving into Aquarius. Granted, this is like months later in May, but in Vedic astrology, this is not a thing. This is not happening. Like we are still in Capricorn. Like and early Capricorn, right? Now we're not even like close to like maybe we're a few years off. Like this is like 2039 is not a few years off. So that's what I think is really interesting is you can take the different systems and really reflect, okay, is this really impacting me and how? Or you can be like, you know what? I'm not vibing with this. And like, this doesn't apply to me. So like, it's cool. So that is a great question that you bring up of, is it even Aquarius for Vedic astrology? It is not.
Okay, is there any alignment with the timing in Vedic to a shift that's happening that could parallel? What is it?
So essentially, the thing that I observed is that we have, because Vedic astrology pays so much attention to the moon movements and therefore the north node and the south node, or Rahu and Ketu, as in Vedic astrology we call them. And the nodes move from Virgo, Pisces into Aquarius, Leo starting May 18th of 2025. So next May is when we see this shift. And Aquarius still has the same themes of technology, disruption, opportunities of rebellion and like kind of coming into this new age. Like that's still that's still very much common. And so I actually see that we'll really feel the effects of this Pluto Aquarius vibe, because I mean Pluto is such a slow moving planet. Like right when it moves, you're probably not like, yeah, I can really feel the vibe because it's such a slow moving planet. It's going to take a little bit of time for you to start feeling those real effects and seeing them. And so I actually am so curious to see how this pans out for the energetic environment when I observe Rahu and Ketu, the North Node and the South Node, moving into this different signs, the Aquarius Leo, which aligns nicely with the Pluto and Aquarius theme and the vibe. So that is probably the best, best thing I can kind of see it happening between the two systems. So yeah.
Okay. So Stephanie, so we just moved into Aquarius in Pluto and Western astrology. And how would you categorize that time? And again, it's going to be there for 20 years in Aquarius.
Yeah, in March 8th of 2043 in Western system, it starts transitioning between Aquarius and Pisces. And that's important to note because people were making a big deal about November 19th in Western astrology. Like, oh my gosh, Pluto's changing. Well, it already started changing back in March of 2023 for us. And it's been teeter-tottering in 2023 and 2024 between the very end of Capricorn and the very beginning of Aquarius. So I guess November 19th felt significant for a lot of people because we know it's not going back into Capricorn again in our lifetime. And for someone like me with the Capricorn moon who's following this and had Pluto sitting on my moon, I'm like, yay, thank you. So yeah, right. It wasn't terrible. I don't want to scare people who have 0 Aquarius moons right now and have them think, oh no, now Pluto's on my moon. Because really, these Pluto transits, they end up being so empowering. I ended up really going to the next level business-wise, stepping up and doing things I knew I needed to do, but I was like, can't somebody else do that? So Pluto does push us. And Pluto in Aquarius represents the desire for freedom and the ability to let go of what's not working. That's why it's associated with some revolutionary astrology, like let's stop doing these things that don't work. And the difference I've been seeing when I look at Pluto and Capricorn years, and it's Capricorn is the realist, everything just was like, look at these problems. And nobody wanted to look at them. And we just got problems pushed in our face. And that's okay, fine. We had to see it. But I'm excited about thinking, okay, Pluto and Aquarius is very innovative. Can we now start talking about solutions? So that's what my hope is for that over the next 20 years. But it's so gradual because Pluto's a slow mover. And what Sophie said about the crossover, I'm actually kind of excited, even though 2039 is a long way away. That probably means, oh, 2037 and 38 will be those crossover years, right, in Vedic. So we're going to have some overlap And maybe those are the years that we really start feeling, whoo, this is happening in both systems now.
So the call for awareness, which you we could speak to this in whatever is going on Vedically right now too, Sophie. So it doesn't have to be like Pluto and Aquarius. There was so much sort of social media and push about Pluto changing into Aquarius, and for me, in my world and in my environment, I'm hosting new moon ceremonies and full moon circles, and and I feel lots of things, and so I'm just wondering. And there's also, I've had a huge kind of shift recently in the last couple of months, actually, so things that I wasn't even planning for. It was one of those like slap you in the face. Oh, like I'm on this trajectory, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just kind of doing what I'm doing, and all of a sudden, like slap, nope. You need to pivot right now. And it was really shocking and quite upsetting at first, but in stride, as I normally take it, if the universe is literally pivoting you for you, it's a call to action and pay attention. So I had to get over the emotional side of that, but it allowed that creativity to sort of, like, I stayed in this emotional state of sort of depression and sadness and frustration and fear. But I knew, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to wait it out. I'm going to wait it out for a minute. I'm not going to push, because I don't even know what to do right now except just be and sort of get into alignment and see what happens. And then it just sort of came to me, this idea and this sort of pivot that I did. And I'm like, okay, all right, I get it. Here's where I'm supposed to go. And that's actually very exciting. And it kind of opened up a whole new, energy. And again, that probably can be explained in multiple ways. But when I looked at and when I wanted to know about Pluto in Aquarius, is it because I know outer planets affect us all, maybe not super strong, but maybe strong, depending on like who would be most affected by a shift like that. Is it like I have two Aquarius in my Mercury and in my Mars, but otherwise in Western astrology, otherwise I don't have, and my Pluto is in Libra. So talk a little bit, Stephanie first, and then Sophie, about that. Like, are certain people more affected than others? Is it that these themes of letting go, freedom, innovation get activated in all of us? Is it that the Pluto, the black box of the things we don't want to see, is this for a time for people to really be encouraged to face this, even if they're not ready? Is like life going to sort of surround them with energy that says it's time, you can't outrun this? So anyway, so Stephanie.
I think you're getting the theme, because it sounds like you've been feeling it. And so Aquarians, definitely, if Pluto is going right over one of your personal planets, but you really have to look at degree, because if you're, a 20-degree Aquarius person, this is really not something to worry about for many years to come. Pluto only moves like 1 or 2 degrees a year. So I'm looking at people who have like the first 5 or 6 degrees as being affected in the next 4 or 5 years. And so that, and then if you think of the signs opposite, like Leo, or the ones that would make a square, which would be Taurus and Scorpio, then those are the ones that are really getting, you want to say, activated by this. And all the people that were Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn are off, kind of like, whoo, we got done with our Pluto journey, and we're passing it on to this other 4 set of signs. So
You said Taurus,
yeah.
Scorpio, Leo.
Yeah, and Aquarius, yeah.
That's so funny. There are so many new Tauruses in my community, and some of them are knee jerking right now about things that they have to do. And I'm like, okay, no, 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 you can't upper limit here. But it's like, oh, I want this, but no, 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 I can't do it. No, I want this. Oh, but I can't do it. Here's the 10 reasons why I can't do it. And I'm like, okay, this is the third time. So it's time to push through. The pattern says it's time. And whatever we have to do to work it out, it's time. So that's interesting. Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. Okay, Sophie.
So I definitely agree with everything that Stephanie said, especially because, I did study Western astrology before, and I incorporate looking at Pluto in my practice for my clients as well. But something that I thought was really interesting was, and I didn't really see a lot of this on social media, so I thought that was also interesting, is that the US had its Pluto's return. And so I feel like literally, right, because Pluto takes 248 years to make that full revolution. And the US is 248 years old this year. And we had this massive election. So we see the energetic environment in general, right? In this kind of crazy, chaotic, emotional state. And so I had a lot of people actually reach out to me because they felt the chaos of what was going on, and it will impact your everyday life. Like the energetic environment you live in is going to impact you unless you're, some kind of monk cultivating like this like armor of energy just around you. And so I also want to remind people that like Pluto might not be doing anything in your chart, like might not be like even close to being close to a degree that's impacting you. But we all share energetic space, and especially like what you're consuming. So if you're constantly consuming what was going on during the election in the news, and that's an energetic vibration going out. But like I was not surprised that we were going to be in a super chaotic energetic environment this year specifically, because the US was going to go through its Pluto's return. And you see this huge shift of that's the average span of an empire. If you literally Google what is the average span of an empire, it's 248 years old. Like that is no coincidence with Pluto. And so I think that's actually really interesting, is observing how the macrocosm of the environment is going to impact your inner microcosm, right? And that's what I think is so beautiful about astrology, is inner is going to reflect outer, outer reflects inner. And there's this relationship that you can view. And so when people talk about what's going on with Pluto, and especially in the Western system, if that's having a major impact on you and disrupting and really kind of making you rethink and innovate and level up, that is, I think that was a trigger that your guides are sending you, versus someone that's like just chilling and they're like good to go and nothing's happening. And so it's going to impact everyone in different ways, and it just might not be your time if you're not being triggered. And if you are being triggered but you're not seeing it hit your chart, remember that like Pluto at the end of the day, especially if you're American and you're in the US, whether you subscribe to politics or you don't subscribe to politics, if you are literally living and breathing in the rest of society, then like it's going to impact you whether you like it or not, because we wake up and we're living our lives and we are energetic particles. That energy is a real thing, and that's going to impact you. So those are kind of my like thoughts on how like I could see Pluto really impacting you from a different lens that's Vedic, right? Because Vedic astrology is like, it's outer, like we're not going to pay attention to that. But as a person that likes to look at Pluto, that's actually how I'm viewing it for myself and for my clients.
So on a global level or on a national level, with Pluto and the reign of the country, if you will, is it still the same themes of things like unearthing things we don't look at, we don't want to look at, dealing with things? What would you say the overall feeling tone of this Pluto transition for the United States? What's the message?
So definitely we're going through a time when Pluto is deep transformation through destruction. So we have to kind of burn it all down to rebuild it back up. And when I say that, people get really scared. They're like, that sounds not fun. And so a lot of people were very upset by the results. And I always tell people that like, if you want to be reborn, you have to die first, and you shouldn't fear it. It's not like the US is going anywhere, by the way. Like the British Empire has had like 3 Pluto returns. It's still like Great Britain's still alive and kicking. And so we're really experiencing this huge transformation of the US as its global superpower, as a nation with the fundamental foundations of what originally built the US. The US is a very young country compared to all these other countries. We have to remember that. So I'm seeing, that this is just the beginning, that we shouldn't get so upset or triggered by what's happening. It's like, we gotta, Pluto is the farmer scorching the farmland so that it will have better crops. Like what is working has to go. And I know, and it's almost like I always like to remind my clients that we're deeply triggered by this, that you have to remember that at the end of the day, you have to take what you can for yourself, and you can't let something like this trigger you, because you can't see 5 years from now. You can't even see next year what's going to happen. You can't even see tomorrow what's going to happen. So don't attach a specific vision and future trip on what your life or the environment you're going to live in is going to look like when no one actually has the superpower of being able to see what the next day looks like, what the next 5 years looks like, what the next 10 years look like. We don't know. And so I always say that that's what Pluto is. And I mean, we definitely are starting to see the effects of this taking shape with some of the more chaotic, polarizing environment. But that's what I always like to reassure clients, that we're really triggered by the political and the just the environment in general.
And I'd remind everybody, I did a show on politics, actually, not too many weeks ago, about when politics makes you pivot. And regardless of what's going outside of you, like you talked about the energy that we're all living in together. So when the country or everybody feels fear, like during COVID, right, even you can't really hide under a rock and avoid that. However, you do get to choose your vibrational frequency of what you focus on, what you think about, and what you feel about, and what you emanate, what you align with. And by default, yes, if the powers that be, if there's so like 80% of the entire world is full of fear, the 20% is going to have to work a little hard to be in alignment and not to block out, but to have compassion for and to come from a different place in order to exist without feeling like a victim. And so same thing with politics to me, regardless of whatever you believe or whatever you're afraid of, what it does. And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe Stephanie, you can speak to this and maybe how it affects each individual person or group of people differently. If I know that there's this energetic shift that's happening, there has to be a rebirth. So in order to have a rebirth, there has to be a death. We have to destroy things. It has to burn down. Very Scorpio, very Phoenix rising from the ashes, if you will. But when we're in that, there's the dualistic thinking about it from the all of us globally or nationally going through this together. But then there's individual person and what that brings up for us individually and what we can control. And we can't control what anyone else is going to do. But what I think this brings into light are a lot of needs. This is sort of the work I'm doing in the world, which is why it makes me nuts. I'm like, everybody wants to blame everybody else for the things that they need and expect someone else is going to give it to you. That is not how it works, nor will it ever. The government will never show up at your door to give you all of your needs all of the time, and you're just going to sit pretty. They're going to feather your nest. It's not what's going to happen. You have to use the situation to see what is it that I need and how can I get those needs met, not by asking anyone else to be different, but by you acknowledging it and taking some action, or possibly making some big decisions about moving or leaving or whatever, the things that you need to do for you, and no one else knows the answer to that except the individual person. But we'll collectively somehow get victimized sometimes because we'll think, oh, we're all in this thing together. It's like, no, hold on. Yeah, maybe there's an idea that we all would like to see more of or less of. But then there's, how does it affect you personally? I mean, I've said this so many times, and it's because I'm an entrepreneur. I don't know about you guys, but I don't, I mean, for years, I couldn't tell you who was president. I mean, I knew, but I didn't, right? It's like, it didn't affect me. It didn't affect my ability to have a business, or, maybe taxes got changed here or there. And again, before, maybe I didn't own a property. Now I do. But there were some situations where I mean, some things worked good for me and some things were, it was like hit or miss every 4 years. Maybe something was good in this arena, but it went bad in a different place. But I didn't blame or say, well, that's because the government. I thought, well, but I'm an independent person who gets to choose that I don't live in this reality. I live in a different frequency where my rules are different and I get to manifest whatever the hell I want. I don't care what everyone else is doing, because that's, if you look around, which, with our news system, it's really putting the camera on like the worst of the worst all the time. Nobody's taking the care. No one wants to pay for all the news of all the wonderful miracles that are happening every day. You have to hear about that from somebody else. But we're wanting to, because it doesn't pay the bills, right? It doesn't get advertisers when you're not shock and awe, when you're not like, oh my God, what do I have to worry about today? It's like, it's nuts. But I think that's another one of my messages about today's show, is because there's a line, and I'm sure you all have it, who's listening, and you too probably deal with it all the time. There's here are the influences, and then here's what you can do about it, versus don't blame the influences because you're still you. Yes, there may be something that says, in astrology, because I used to, was it Linda Goodman? No, there was another person who would do like a forecast, and I don't remember who it is. Anyway, it's Western, but I would read it, and I remember back in like Hollywood when I first got to California, and I would read it as a prediction, and I had to stop because it would make me nuts. It would make me actually act differently. I would read what was going to happen this month, and then I would go, okay, and I'd sort of like, I'm not going to do anything because the stars are going to take care of it for me, and then it didn't happen, and I'm like, this is making me crazy. So I stopped doing that. And if anything, I'd read it after the month was over to see if that had happened. But it definitely influenced how I acted and what I did. So, Stephanie, let's go back to the Pluto in Aquarius and collective energies that people are, like you mentioned, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius are going to be four signs that possibly might get more opportunities attracted to them at this time to look at sort of what's the things that need to be healed, the things that need to be changed. Where am I not free? What do I need to let go of? How do I need to be innovative and creative in my life? What's calling forth that out of me? Would that be accurate?
Yes, that's the themes. I think that'll be kind of universal and then particularly obvious in the people's lives whose signs are being affected in those earlier degrees. I've been, while we're having this discussion, I've been thinking about Aquarius being so unique because it represents both individual freedom and the collective. And I go back and forth with this in my head as an astrologer a lot. Like, wait, if it's all about you and your individuality, but also about the collective, wow, I really like that. It feels like we are at the threshold of a time period where the power could go back to the people. I think of this, like what you were saying, who cares who's in charge? There's all of us here. What do we want to do? And sure, everyone's going to be an individual and have different ideas about how they want to do what they want to do, but we could collectively agree on how we want our society to feel. How do we want to treat each other? These kind of things, I think, are going to start to surface because it's going to become very obvious that it's not happening, from a higher level of government or authority, and that we are the ones taking the power. Like, can't somebody else just make things feel more fair? No, we have to start treating each other more fairly. This type of thing, I think it requires everybody to be more mindful about how they're operating in the world. Like, this is again already been coming up, but I think it's going to get bigger. But I'm kind of excited. I'm excited about like the personal part of it and people relying on, their neighbors. I think a lot about networking and communities under this Aquarian astrology. And, of course, I'm living in a place that it's kind of already doing a lot of that up in Portland, Oregon, and like free boxes. I'm like, that's so Aquarian. You just walk around, you need something. Oh, look, somebody put it on the sidewalk. Maybe I'm sure there's a lot of other cities like that too. But it's very liberating to think, yeah, we can help each other. We don't always have to go out and buy the newest thing. That's a form of financial freedom, for example. So these are some of the things that I've been fixating on more so than government or politics. I think it's really about what we decide to do as individuals and then how we want to do it collectively.
Yeah, no, and I think both. Yeah, when you said that about Aquarians, because Aquarian is the humanitarian sign, right? So if Aquarian is a humanitarian sign, you have to be dualistic in terms of, because even though you can be a humanitarian, you're still an individual person who cannot. You can just lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Like, there's only so much influence that we actually have on other people. Right. At the end of the day, we can definitely try to make movements happen. And, I started a block party last year at Christmas, because when I moved here to Ojai, there was nothing. I'm used to going to Manhattan Beach, and there's the fireworks, and then I had candy cane lane parties, and like there are like big things because it's more people live there, and it's near the water, and it's more touristy. But I thought I wanted like, where's something to do here? There's nothing to do here for me. So then I decided to make it. So I made a block party and then I had a summer one and now we have our second annual holiday block party next Saturday. And by the time this is up, it's this Saturday. So but that is me anyway, as a leader, as someone that just sort of takes action. I'm not waiting for someone else to do it because I know they won't. I mean, I had really cute old people up the street who said to me, "Oh, we've been wanting to do this for 20 years." And we just didn't get to it. I'm like, it wasn't that hard, but okay, I'm here to make it happen. I'm got all that fire in me. How hard is it? But anyway, but they all enjoyed it. And the point is that regardless of how dedicated to changing the culture and humanity and the attachment we have to contributing to society as a whole, we're still individuals that get to choose our point of focus and no one can vibrate for you. So you're still going to be allowing in these opportunities to transform it, to change. So I want to go back and just sort of and I know maybe there's something else going on in Vedic right now, because Sophie, you've been blowing up your social media. So I know maybe that's something new you're doing, saying, here's what's happening this day and this day and this day.
I mean, it's interesting because the transits itself are similar, right? It's just that they're in different signs. And I've been like, I mean, it's funny because like talk about reinvention of the self with this Aquarian energy, the Pluto, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, subscribe to it, whatever. But then like I'm literally coming full force, and I like just launched this course, and I'm online, like active, and it's interesting because I love what you were saying about your locus of control. Don't let what's going on the outside like just focus on what you can control for yourself, and like that's how I operate. So when all this kind of hoopla was going on, I was like, guys, let's just focus on what you can actually do to like make a change for yourself, because you're still here, you're still living. So I really love what both of you guys were actually pointing to about the like individual, and like do what you can for you, like focus on you. And that's what I really love about astrology. But I have been talking a lot about the astrological stuff. Not that before there wasn't stuff going on, because there was. It was just me being a little lazy, not posting about it. But now I'm like, this is what's going on here. That's what's going on here. And this is all pretty much the same in Western astrology, to be honest. And like, I don't even reference the signs because it confuses people. And to me, I think tracking astrology is more like understanding what kind of patterns are showing up for you. So I referenced that on Saturday, we have this Venus conjunct Pluto situation happening. It happens every single year. And so this also kind of goes into the energy of what's happening now. And, we have a bunch of retrograde energy, which is reflective. So end of year does get this like heavy, we got to review, right? Jupiter's retrograding, Mercury's retrograding. We just finished a Saturn retrograde. We just entered a Mars retrograde. So we're just like retrograding all over. And retrograde, for those of you guys that don't understand, means backwards. It's reviewing, reflecting, refining, all the fun R words. And so we feel this like massive slowdown of this like reflective energy. And I always tell people with astrology, I actually kind of hate the predictive nature. Nothing and no one can predict your life. That's just like, you could go to the most famous psychic in the world. She's going to only be able to get maybe like 50% right. No one can actually predict your life. And that's probably the thing that I have like the biggest gripe about in astrology, specifically even Vedic astrology, which has become very, very pointed in like the predictive parts. That was not the original origins of why astrology was even studied. And so I always tell people, use it as a reflective tool. See, okay, if something happens this weekend, take note of it. Oh, it's interesting that this happened during this Venus situation. I wonder what happened last year. I wonder what happened 2 years ago. I wonder if, I always like to use it as a tool to understand your own patterns. What's going on with you has nothing to do with the outside world. Who cares about this person, that person, the outside world? Let you bring it back to you, focus it back to you. So that's actually why I really love the transits and just understanding, oh, wow, this is so interesting that this is happening. And this is coming back around for me. And that's what I actually encourage people to use the tools with. But the actual transits itself are pretty much the same, Western versus Vedic. It's just the signs that are different.
Yeah. Are they the same, Stephanie? Are they the same transits and retrogrades in Western as they are in?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I think you just mentioned four, Sophie. There are four retrogrades happening. Four or
So we've
five?
got Mars that's coming up tomorrow, Mars retrograde. We've got Mercury retrograde right now. It's funny that we're doing this. I've been having a lot of tech issues, so interesting, but thank God everything's good. And then Jupiter is also retrograde. So, and then Saturn retrograde ended November 15th. So that's a lot of retrograde energy hitting us. That's a lot of planetary retrograde energy right there. So,
Which
yeah.
you said review, reflect, refine. And so for those of you that are out there, and I'm thinking of specific people who it's like we get into this thing where when I say when we're in alignment, we make decisions about things that we want. We believe in ourselves, we have faith because we're in alignment. When you have a retrograde, it feels like that might be a time to reflect, review, and refine, and something makes you go whoop and you pull back. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean you're out of alignment. It just means that you for a second kind of get knee jerked and then go, okay, is that really what I want? And I think that that can be beneficial to recognize. It's to me an upper limit. Okay. When someone is in alignment, makes a decision, and then all of a sudden gets out of alignment and scarcity happens or fear happens or worry. And because they're asking to be broken out of a pattern. And in order for so I don't know, since I talked to both of you, I've created a course called Rewiring Your Core Wound Patterns. And the whole point of the course, after we figure out the core wounds and the map that I've created, is to ask people to step outside of their comfort zone on a regular basis in order to heal the wounds and change the belief, which is something like, you guys would probably agree that you work out harder when you have a personal trainer, right? Than when you are on by yourself. When you have someone who's helping you, you're focused more, you pay attention more, you're willing to push a little harder. And most people don't want to break those patterns because we're all about comfort. People numb themselves on every different level. We're about staying in our bubble and staying comfortable. But in order to change these beliefs, in order to change these patterns, we have to get to a place where our brain rewires itself, neuroplasticity wise, right? And do something kind of scary with reason, not random, with reason. I'm not saying go jump out of a plane, everybody, like that, if that has no bearing on how you necessarily heal a certain wound. But it feels like the retrograde time isn't about breaking down or pausing for no reason. It feels like a pausing for like you said, refine, reflect, and reevaluate. But would you both, Stephanie, answer this first, for retrograde energy? Um, is it a pivot point of like I'm gonna spend this time sort of looking at what I'm about to do, but it's not a message to not do it?
I would agree with that. Often, you realize that you've overlooked something, and like you're like, "Woo! I'm glad I didn't push forward with that right now." Like I always say, it's not the time to force anything because you're getting a message. The reason things are slowing down is because you might have skipped a step or you might have overlooked something that could make what you're doing so much easier or better. But so I like to look at it from that way. And sometimes there's things that you haven't finished that are holding you back from what you want to do. And so just try to go ahead and, as they say, clear your plate, because if you have a big ambition and there's all this old stuff hanging over your head, you're not going to be as effective. And so it just means like maybe putting a pin in your new idea and going ahead and putting a wrap on whatever it was you didn't finish, or calling those people and saying, no, I'm not going to do it, because you want to focus on something else. So even, yeah, if you're setting intentions during a retrograde time period, I try to think of what do you need to finish or let go of before you can move forward, and that seems to be helpful. So there's plenty to do. You don't stop your life during the retrogrades.
But you would say, what do you need to finish or let go of in order to do the thing you want to do, or in order to move forward with whatever you want to move forward with?
And research too, because that's a good RE word. You're so excited about your new idea. That's awesome. Do a ton of research. Just don't make a final decision till the energy is more clear. And the other retrograde I was going to mention, because I've been telling clients, just keep these dates in your head: November 25th, 2024 through April 12th, 2025. Because right when we come out of Mars retrograde on February 23rd, a week later, we go into Venus retrograde March 1st. So to me, it's just a big old long months long string of inner planet retrograde that I'm just duly noted. Okay, don't try to bust forward with too much. Obviously, you have to live your life, so there you may have to do some new things. But if you can think of after April 12th as a more clear time for like the big reveal, that would be ideal.
Well, what about in the case of, so if I'm starting things January, you know, people are like, okay, here's, and it's like you either get on board in January or you wait a year. You know, when people have to make decisions like that, do you say don't do it because there's a retrograde?
Well, I guess it depends what it would be. Does the decision have to happen in January?
Decision has happened before January.
Oh, okay then.
It's about
Well,
deciding on a calendar year what I want to focus on and how I want things to be different. So there's sort of the clean slate, again, calendar wise, starting in January. Because I'll know people that won't move forward with things because of retrograde, but that's where I wanted to find that line of, am I doing that because the universe says it, or is it because it's just an excuse for me not to take action, which sometimes people like to use? Because I'll find the people that, I mean, I had a friend who would use astrology and in a very negative, in a bad way with psychics. Like she'd see all these people that would read things, I'm trust me, I've had a million on the show. I help people with strengthening intuition. I'm all about that. But at the same time, if I have to go ask you what to do about my life all the time, that I don't take action, then I'm no longer in control of my own life, and I'm not really assimilating this information and feeling what's right for me if I have to consult all the time. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like I use astrology, I want to make sense of what I'm feeling, not go, what should I feel? It's like getting on the scale. If I get on the scale because I'm looking if I want to be happy about what the results are, I tell people don't get on the scale until you're already happy. Like get on the scale when you feel good about yourself, because it won't change that you already feel good about yourself. If you're sort of defaulting to, well, I don't know what to, like calling your therapist to make a decision. We're not really helping people if they don't know how to make a decision, sort of clicking into themselves. Does that make any sense? Like
yeah.
how would one, I mean, how do you think about that when it comes to astrology?
I just think of pacing, I guess. So yeah, there's a lot of people that have decisions, or maybe they're like, look, we're already selling our home, we're buying a new home, all this stuff. And it's just, I think, okay, we'll just keep the climate in mind. Can you do things more thoroughly and slowly? Put a lot, just double, triple checking everything. So that way, yeah, I don't think anybody can stop their life between now and April 12th, you know. So I think you just have to think about what are your top priorities, and can you do things way more thoroughly than you normally would. And that should help. Yeah.
Okay.
I like to think about the retrograde energy as points of reflective questioning. So with Mercury, it's like, is this plan a good plan and the best plan? I mean, granted, this Mercury retrograde ends December 15th, which is not that far away, but it's more about like I like to use the specific planet. Okay, so is this really logistically, strategy wise, a good plan? And then with the Mars, it's like, okay, well, how am I actually taking action? And it's about, is it, so because Mars is action, right? And then when Venus comes around, it's going to be more like, is this actually really aligned with my values? Is this really aligned with what brings me happiness? Like, why am I doing this in the first place? And I think that's essentially how I would like to look at it. And I always tell people, you're going to make the decision you want to make. Just don't get married to the outcome. Because if you're like trying to go during a Mercury retrograde and you're going to hit all these delays or whatever, don't be married to the outcome of it's going to happen on this specific date. It'll happen. Don't worry. If it's in its highest good, greatest good, it's going to align, but don't be married to the outcome. And I think that that's just like a nice rule of thumb for like almost everything in life. But the retrograde teaches us that. It really teaches us like, don't be married to your outcome. Just enjoy your process, be present, and be hyper intentional with what you're doing and why you're doing it and what value you're getting and how you're actioning it. So that's actually really kind of how I like to look at the retrograde, because I like putting stuff out and I can't put my life on pause as an astrologer either. So, and I don't want people to just stop living and breathing and dying by like, oh my God, it's this transit. So definitely not. So that's my school of thought with this retrograde, because like we can't just stop living.
Right, right. And I don't, I know that that's, but there are people, and you guys know them, right? There are people that will consult outside sources before making any decision about anything. They haven't cultivated a knowing, an inner knowing, an inner trust of what's right for me, regardless of what's going on in the world. And that's sort of like the line I want to straddle here with all things astrology, your therapist, your coaches, whatever, like, your scales for sure. Please stop abusing and being addicted to the scale, because it's just ridiculous. Anyway, and I'll talk more about that another time. I have a program called Date Your Body, and it starts in January. That's what I'm saying. So I have this program. It's starting in January. It's called Date Your Body. And one of the things that I help people stop doing is being addicted to the scale, because they'll go step on the scale to see if, oh, did I do a good job? Should I be happy today, or should I beat myself up today? And it's so bad because it's so dysfunctional, and it keeps that cycle going of that trauma and of that the shame and all the things. So that was where I'm coming from, because again, in the back of my head, I have seen people who are too dependent on all outside sources. I want to have people be aware of outside sources and then use your internal guidance system to make a decision with this information, and but not delegate it to just the information outside of you. You have to cultivate that inner knowing of how it affects you and who you are as a person and how you tick. So with this sort of whatever season it is, Pluto, retrograde, all the things that are going on, I want you guys to just think of any advice, and you've given it already, but let's just give one sort of last seasonal advice from now until, let's say, the end of the year, or even including the beginning of January, based on the point of view of your astrology and based on what's going on, and anything else you want to add to that. What would your advice be to those that are listening? I'm going to start with you, Stephanie.
Okay, yeah, I would definitely say pace yourself, because first of all, Pluto is going to be in Western astrology in Aquarius for about 20 years. So if you're thinking you want to make a lot of big life changes, it's not going to all happen fast. Pluto is actually not a fast mover. So it's doing things on such a deep level. It's thorough, but it's not fast. So keep your expectations realistic based on that. And then especially over the next several months as we go into the new year, we're in these retrogrades. So again, that's pretty much what Sophie was saying. It's not going to happen overnight. But if we have realistic expectations, and I liked what you were saying, JJ, about reflection, because inner knowing goes really well with retrogrades. The Mercury rules our mind and our thought process. When it's in retrograde, we actually are more in touch. And that's why they say I was born under Mercury retro. And it's, sure, you want to take other things into account, but other people's advice doesn't always work for people born under Mercury retro, because they kind of have this strong sense inner wise of what they know, but I think everybody has access to that. But gather the information and then go sit alone with it, and so you're not so influenced by everybody else.
Yeah, great. Well, I definitely think everyone can cultivate inner knowing a little bit better. Right?
Yes.
Okay, Sophie.
So I don't want to repeat what you two have already said, which is amazing advice, and I don't want to repeat myself. So I would actually really love to share just something that I've been personally doing during this retrograde and just in general for a couple months now. That's just been so helpful for me. But if you have a question in mind, or if you're seeking guidance right before you go to bed, ask that question to whatever you believe in, whether it's God or your spirit guides or your ancestors or universe, right? And for me, I actually write it on my phone so I can kind of keep track. And don't ask too many questions, because then you're going to forget and you're going to confuse yourself. But I like to ask like one question. And I ask, so I'll be like, God, I need guidance on XYZ. Give me guidance, right before I go to bed. And then I'll wake up the next morning, and I'm a pretty avid journaler, like every single day kind of lady. But when you wake up in the morning, take out your journal and start writing, and you will find that the answer will come out to you. And I like to practice stream of consciousness journaling, which is journaling for like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes straight. and just brain dumping. And you will find that the answer you are seeking reveals itself right then and there. So that is a practice that I highly recommend. You will find the answers because the answers are within you. So that's kind of my tip I would like to leave your viewers.
Great. Well, I think that's a great exercise that everybody can do. So let me give you guys the floor to just talk about what you're doing, your books, your courses, your astrology readings. Stephanie, why don't you share with everybody where to find you, what you're working on, how they can work with you, and anything that goes with that.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Um, I want to definitely mention the janspiller.com website because that's where you can get reports that were written by Jan herself. And I still am involved with that website, but I have my very own site now. This is part of my Pluto transformation, Stephanie Shea astrology.com. And on that site, I've got a lot of classes. I've been doing a North Node webinar series, and then I'm coming out with a New Year's webinar series of 3 Saturdays where we're going to go, okay, let's talk more about these retrogrades. Let's talk about the eclipses. And then we're going to do one just on the new moons of the next year. And then another one, okay, what's up with these outer planets that are all moving into different signs? So I'm very excited about that. I'm collaborating with another astrologer, Elizabeth Russell, on that. So you can find all that info on the classes and webinars on stephanieshayastrology.com. And I also have info on my personal readings, which I love to do.
Great. Stephanie, congratulations on your new website.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Sophie.
So I launched a course, Stars and Karma Beginner's Guide to Vedic Astrology. If you want to know more about Vedic astrology, it is for beginners. So if you don't know anything about astrology, this is perfect. And it's super bite-sized. So it's not going to overwhelm you with like, oh my God, what the heck? The 10-minute long per video kind of situation. It is a kind of down and dirty, like, oh, okay, here are the signs, here are the houses, here's kind of the foundation. So I launched that. That's live. And then I'm actually super excited because I am launching an X-rated astrology. So it is very sexy. It is all about sex, relationships, love, and it's a 3-course series. And that will be launching mid-December. So super excited about that. You can find all of that on sophieswan.com or on my Instagram, Sophie S. Wan. And then for readings, I take readings. I love reading. I'll never stop reading. That's the best way to keep in touch with what's going on with people. So you can find me either my website or my Instagram.
Okay, great. Any last words? Just leave that up in case there's anything else anybody wants to say. All these links will be in the show notes, or if you're here on YouTube, it's underneath the video. But Stephanie or Sophie, any last words?
I just want to thank you so much for having us. And I thought this was a really great conversation and kind of fit the theme of community astrology, you know? So thank you. Yeah. And I'm really happy to be able to do this.
Thank you. Anything, Sophie?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been awesome. It went by so fast. I was like, oh my gosh, where did the time fly by? But I guess, what keeps coming into mind, it's like, it's almost like my guides are like, make sure you say this before it ends. But I've been telling myself this is just be here now. So be in the present, be here now. That's my final words because I feel like literally I could just hear my guides being like, make sure you say it, make sure you say it. I was like, okay, I will say it. So be here now.
Yeah. It's a theme. It's a theme. I had somebody here recently who found out through her journey with me that being present is very hard. And I think for some of us, we take that for granted if we're able to do it. And there are others who don't do it at all, who are never present because they're spinning or they're in their head or they're disconnected from their bodies. So yeah, this year I did an event called the Embodied Healing Intensive, and it was about being in your body and connecting that, because we can get into the sort of idea, creative air sign energy of thinking and thoughts and so much so that people live there. And then they wonder why they're they have disease, they have pain, their body is rejecting them, and they're disconnected, they can't cry. So we worked on that, and I would love to do more work with that. I mean, that's another reason why I created Date Your Body, was to move people out of, because I love the analytical stuff. Yeah, we've only been doing this. This show was not super long, considering there are two of you here. We could keep talking, we can keep going. It's rich, it's exciting. There's lots of things we could offer people, and at the same time, people can get overloaded, which is why I want to sort of cap it at where we have it. And I love that your guides mentioned that, because it's one thing to listen to this, it's another thing to live this. So, everybody, I would like to take all the advice that was given today, go back and re-listen to the show, watch this video again. If you haven't been able to take notes, take some notes. I like to tell people that, especially when I'm doing a new moon, definitely a new moon circle or ceremony, because I want people, like, I'll read all the different things that's going on in that sign, and I'm like, don't write them all down, just listen with your body. Listen with your body, and whatever resonates with you is what you're supposed to write down. So that's what the message that you need to learn. So I would say, listen to this episode again, check out Stephanie's work, check out Sophie's work, follow them both on Instagram, go to both of their websites. They have different kinds of courses that don't sound like they overlap at all. You can do all of them. So do all of them, follow both of them, because there's going to be some information that you're going to get from both Vedic and from Western that will probably be helpful to you. And as always, come back to center in terms of your inner guidance. Take all the information, leave it in your auric field, and then use your inner guidance to connect with what you need to take action on, because without action, it's just information that does nothing for you. So thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate both of you, and everyone, check out Stephanie and Sophie in their websites and on social media, and take this Mercury retrograde energy and review, reflect, refine, reorganize, and rewire.